has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines.
Yes, war is potentially changing in Stellaris, how it functions, who is actually doing the fighting, etc. Let's dive right into the PMCs, the brand new PMCs of Stellaris. Yes, it's the Mercenary Enclave. Historically, enclaves in Stellaris are very simple. They hover in space, they are a location, and you go to them and you ask them for stuff. The Mercenary Enclave, however, does not function like that at all. No, instead, you found the Enclave yourself, or at least you can have the option to, because right at the start of the game, that's not gonna be possible just yet, unless, of course, you have the right civics. We'll get to those shortly. Anyway, in order to get a Mercenary Enclave, you will need a fleet with at least 50 fleet power. Then on top of that, add an admiral into the mix and put it in a system that is under your control that doesn't already have an enclave in it and has an asteroid or a moon. And you need to have mercenary capacity, something we already mentioned. And finally, you are not a Gestalt Consciousness or a Fanatic Purifier. Yes, all the mix here is fun. So robots do not apply, neither do hive minds. Regardless, when you've done so and you find yourself with a fleet, you can found yourself a Mercenary Enclave for the small cost of 1500 energy credits, as well as influence and a bunch of alloys. But still, as I mentioned, you can't do it right at the start of the game, which means that you are going to need a bunch of civics. Either if you are warrior culture, barbaric despoilers, PMCs, i.e. private military contractors, or if you have the naval contractor civic, you will get first for the first 3 just one slot, and for the naval contracts a second one, which is nice. In addition, there's a brand new Ascension perk called the Lord of War, which adds even more Mercenary Enclaves, and it will add additional capacity for your enclaves. And on top of that, you get diplomatic weight from fleet power, something that is not all that useful at the start of the game, but still a nice little bonus to have. And on top of that, you will have some bonuses by getting dividends from Mercenary Enclaves. Now, once you've founded a Mercenary Enclave, a little station will spawn in that system, and the Mercenary Enclave will put their deals out for other empires to hire that fleet. And of course, as I mentioned, you can get the dividends of said fleet. But yeah, you have security services. The empire that controls the primary starbase of that enclave is considered their patron, and additional interactions with them. You can rent a fleet. You can get ground troops, because let's be honest, who would want to build those? You can have something called logistical solutions, which is not particularly clear. And on top of that, if you are their patron, you can review their options. Still though, you can have some bonuses. For instance, as your patron, let's say that you are fighting in a war, and the PMC has gone out into the wild yonder and fight against you. This is not very cash money of them, therefore you can go to them and say, hey, this war that you're fighting in against us, we would like you to not do so. And you can then pay them off and then join basically you, and basically go back to where they were. Obviously, this is going to be pretty expensive. It costs a bunch of influence, and is something you want to keep in mind. But of course, you can also hire their fleets, which is rather nice. And over time, you can get bigger fleets, you can give them technology to improve their fleets, etc. Mercenaries will be mercenaries, even if they originally came from you. But this also means that there is a good chance that in the galaxy there is going to be a ton of mercenaries, or maybe you have several mercenary enclaves under your control who you are milking for their delicious energy credits. Still though, what does that mean for the galactic community? Well, the galactic community may or may not really like defensive contracting. Yes, the privatization of the military is definitely a thing, such as security contractors, where you will pay up, or everybody pays up, a little bit of their naval capacity so that mercenary enclaves can be a little bit more powerful. Also, you will get an enclave capacity, so you can get yet another mercenary enclave. And this goes all the way down to even more extremes. How about a reduction in naval capacity of 25%? 40% in every single time the mercenary enclave gets more and more powerful. And if you have federations, you can have the more ridiculous versions that go all the way up to, and I wish I was kidding, being at war with no hired mercenaries is banned. Yes, everybody has to hire mercenaries in their armies in order to fight wars. Otherwise, they're going to be at the receiving ends from sanctions within the galactic community. So yeah, and also apparently your diplomatic weight is increased by 20%, i.e. the power of 2 envoys, if you have a mercenary fleet hired. And this goes even crazier when, I don't know, you lose 80% of your naval capacity, and the mercenary enclaves are basically the only thing that fights war for people. Yes, proxy wars in Stellaris are becoming a thing, and I think it's hilarious and awesome. I'm not even gonna lie here. Like, the scenarios that we can have in galaxies where, I don't know, the entire galaxy does not have any standing fleets because we're just hiring, I don't know, BlackRock instead, or Blackwater, whatever they're called these days, to fight our wars for them, and then paying other people off to lose their fleets so we can roll them. Yeah, the politics in here are going to be hilarious, and especially in multiplayer environments, this is going to be a very, very interesting. But aside of that, there are more enclaves coming in our direction as well. Yes, there is also the Scrappers. The Scrappers are a very interesting bunch who you can essentially say, hey, this fleet over here, I don't want to just disband it and just leave it alone with all that investment I have. I'd like to scrap a fleet, please. Give me some money and we'll just go from there. Or you can go to them and say, hey, you got any reclaimed ships over here that we can take? Yeah, those scrap fleets from earlier, you can reclaim those as well. And you may not be the only fleet person who was there to scrap ships, so who knows what you can get. In addition to that, if you are big buddies with them, you can, for instance, take a look at what kind of salvage stuff they have. So maybe if you've lost a ship at some point, you could maybe salvage a ship, or maybe some debris. That'd be interesting. Get some engineering bonuses out of it. That'd be very nice. Yeah, looking very interesting to see what's going on with these guys, and they got some cool character portraits as well. Then there is the mysterious Shroud Walkers, as they call themselves. They look like they're straight out of Dune with these things in front of their face. New portrait pack once again coming in, apparently. And you can essentially say, hey, what's going to happen in our future? Essentially, they can scry the future and see what's going on. And then, of course, you can use the brand new situation screen where you can see what is coming up. Is there a calamity coming in your direction? And then will be listed. Very cool stuff. And, of course, you can ask them, hey, we would like to have a Shroud Walker bonus on our planet, where all of a sudden your pops will have an increase in pop Unity production on their jobs. And if you happen to have pet telepaths because you have a psi cops thing, I think it is, you're going to get additional telepaths on you as well. But, of course, you can also ask them, hey, I would like to have a Shroud beacon in my system so that I can tunnel straight through the Shroud, because nothing bad of that will come. And essentially, you will get a passage straight to their home system, at least as far as I understand. And yeah, you need to apparently be really careful about this, because who knows what's gonna happen. I'm sure that it has nothing to do with the fact that if you use jump drive way too much, that a certain endgame crisis has the bigger chance to show up. I'm really looking forward to dig really deeply into this one and see what is sitting behind all of this. But still, that is the Enclaves. Time to take a look at the Bulwark. Speaking of multiplayer environments, welcome to the next Vassal that we're going to be talking about for this update for Overlord. It is the Bulwark. The Bulwark is a full defensive Vassal that you can have in your empire, or at least as part of your empire, that are completely focused on platforms and stations. And whilst at first glance that may not seem to be too interesting, imagine if you have a galaxy with a ton of choke nodes, with the Bulwark controlling most of those, as well as having gateways in those systems. Well, then we're starting to look at some very interesting scenarios. Allow me to illuminate about their specializations. At tier 1, they get additional bonuses to all their defense platforms, but of course they're not all that great for energy credits, minerals, and food, so you're going to need to subsidize that. All the way up to tier 3, where their defense platforms do 100% additional damage. They have 100% additional hull points. They can crank them out incredibly quickly. They have so many defense platforms, they will blot out the sun. The damage that they do is plus 75%, and on top of that, they cannot support themselves because they need subsidies to survive. Yes, these are some of the 3 tiers that you can have, but bypassing them with, I don't know, side jump drive is potentially an option as well. There's nothing here about interdiction, which maybe should be a thing. Otherwise, bulwarks could become very useless very quickly, unless, of course, they're fighting against some of the endgame crises who do not use these FTL systems. Still, though, you will get additional bonuses from them as well by having the advisory options. The Overlord will get some upgrades costs for reductions in their star bases as well as their speed, so their star bases can be built a lot quicker. In addition, there is a hyper relay network bonus here. The hyper relays are apparently these new fangled things that we've seen in the trailers, and they're not going into too much depth, but I would not be surprised if this means that you can deploy your fleets relatively quickly by deploying gateways in Vassal systems. If that is the case, then one of the biggest things that I've been wanting for the game has finally been done. Then, of course, there is the Shield Magnifier, which when you are in one of your Bulwark systems fleets, ships, or at least friendly ships in own systems, yeah, they just get a casual plus 100% shield hit bonus. Not that it matters much versus, I don't know, weapons that completely bypass shields, but you get the general idea. Yeah, pretty powerful. In addition to that, you can get technologies to get better researchable options, very much focused around citadels, fortresses, modular engineering, any sort of engineering-related stuff. And finally, they can give you admirals, and they can give you admiral traits, etc. But this is the best one right here. The Bulwark Battle Rite. So the Bulwark Battle Rite is an idea that I've personally been wanting for quite some time, which is a dedicated support ship that comes in the game that is not a Titan. Back in the day, you would be able to do this with battleships, but that's no longer the case. Those aura effects haven't existed for quite some time. Regardless, the Bulwark Battle Rite is an upgraded construction ship where all friendly ships in system will get a daily hull regeneration of plus 2%. For those of you who are running crystalline plates or crystalline forge plates, yeah, you're going to be very happy about this. Ships will get additional hull points by 50%, and on top of that, their armor hit points go up by 50% as well. In addition, with the plus 100% shields that you can get while going into friendly territory, and if you are in a defensive war, yeah, you're looking at some pretty crazy shit right here. That's pretty fun. In addition to that, hostile ships in own systems can have a daily hull regeneration of up to minus 0.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot until you start thinking, wait a minute, I can bypass shields and I can bypass armor, and all of a sudden they die with just a little poke in on the hull. Yeah, that's fun. That's really fun. So when a Bulwark is going into unyielding, now you're needing to start to watch out. Still though, Bulwarks by themselves feel very much like a buffer state between you and the rest of the galaxy, so you can go and sit back, play Nemesis, eat all those stars, and then everybody else has to get through your Bulwark to get to you, and they will be absolutely massacred by the relevant stations on the inside, and all the fun and games that comes with that. Then there are holdings. We have the Emporium, which are the Overlord buildings that come with the game. It's very similarly to the trade bases that you can get from the Megacorps. The Emporium, it will basically give you amenities as the Overlord, or actually it gives energy credits to the Overlord. Ministry of Production does the same thing, but it gives food as well as consumer goods, which is nice. The Ministry of Energy, same thing, but with energy. Then there's the Orbital Assembly Complex, and I can't wait to try this bad boy out because this seems to be rife for, I don't know, exploits. Planetary build speed plus 10%. Pretty exciting. But then, every Overlord construction ship in orbit gives an additional 10% of planetary build speed, all the way up to 40, which essentially is 50 with the base bonus already, gives additional alloys to the Overlord, and you can essentially crap entire planets out of the ground pretty much instantly. So if you're sitting somewhere and you're thinking by yourself, you know what, this Bulwark needs more habitats filled with fortresses, yeah, having an orbital assembly complex is probably one of the best way of dealing with things because you can crank out these bad boys without much of a hassle. Then, of course, you'll need to go over to other empires and aggressively invite other pops through, I don't know, beaming them off the planet to populate these places, but you get the general idea. good fun has be had by everybody's. Reanimators essentially adds necromancers to the planet, and it gives the subject undead armies, and it gives the overlord some research bonuses, which is nice. Megacorps will give the re-employment center, where all your dead will work as zombie pops. Yes, the reassigners are all that fun. And the franchise headquarters, which comes for the Megacorps, where the overlord managers turn consumer goods into unity and trade value for the subject, as well as unity for the overlord, but clerics will not be producing as much trade value, and instead will be producing unity for the overlord and all the fun and games that comes with that. Yeah, all the good fun times. I'm sure that as a multiplayer environment where you're playing with your bros or your gals with one of these where everybody is a type of subject is definitely going to be a lot of fun. Imperial Fiefdom, which is one of the new origins. You start out as a vassal of an advanced empire, and you have the option to choose whatever specialist you want to be. So that's either going to be a Prospectorium, a Scholarium, or the Bulwark. And I wouldn't be surprised that the final goal is to be released from this empire. All the fun and games with that. Will you ever break free, is what the Death Diary says. Good times. Still, though, next week, apparently, we're going to be talking about some of the new things that we can build. The mega structures, maybe. Research the Scholarium, or at least what the Scholarium is like, and see what the specialist holdings, or at least the remaining ones, are like as well. Apparently, the Galactic community is changing again, and we're going to take a look at yet another origin and all the fun and games that comes with that. What do you think? I think this is one of the biggest changes, or at least one of the big selling points for this update. The vassals themselves are incredibly interesting and going to be incredibly powerful for those of you who are playing with a lot of vassals to begin with. I myself are one of these people, but the power of the Mercenary Corps are going to be super interesting to explore, plus of course the other ones as well.